Talking college sports in the Deep South where college football is king, and on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. All right, Fearless and True Gang, let's go ahead and get this comment section active. We're talking college football like it's nobody's business. On the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. We're talking a little bit of Gus Malzahn. We're previewing somewhat weeks 1, 2, and 3 for the Auburn Tigers. Also, we want to talk about some trends, early season trends that have really damaged Auburn's chances in the past. Okay, let's go ahead and get this comment section active. Go ahead and subscribe to Vernon Speak Sports Auburn. We're just a few months away from the Advocare Classic. Man, this is basically the dead period in between the June-July stretch where you're binge watching your favorite college football teams on YouTube. You're just trying to stay engaged until the football season starts. So we're going to be talking about Auburn football today and somewhat previewing the first 3 games of the season, not necessarily giving any predictions, but these first 3 games are going to go a long way as to how this particular season can turn out. Of course, you got the first game against Oregon, then you got Kent State, then Tulane in the first 3 matchups. See, here's the thing with Auburn. Auburn will absolutely have to end the trend of the early season losses. If you look at Gus Malzahn's tenure as a coach for the Auburn Tigers, 2013, 2015, 16, 17, and 18, Auburn always has a early pre-game, either losing in Game 5 or losing before Game 5. Back in 2013, we kind of sort of didn't know where this team was headed, which is an asterisk to what I'm talking about. Auburn goes into LSU, Game 5 of the season, down 21-0 at halftime against LSU. Comes back in the second half and outscores LSU 21-14. What happened? They found their stride. They found out that the Trey Mason, Nick Marshall combination is what worked. The only issue with that is it took a loss for you to figure that out, because in prior games you had Corey Grant as the leading rusher, different other guys that led the team in rushing. Not quite Trey Mason's spot at that point. In 2015, for example, lost Game 4 and 5, shaky play at the quarterback. Didn't figure out that Jeremy Johnson wasn't the guy at quarterback until week 4. And then you lose to Mississippi State, a game you probably wouldn't have lost in 2015, 17-9, if everything was already well established. So here's what I'm getting at here. Well, you know what? Let's go on to 2016. All of us remember in the second game, I think Clemson, might have been the first game, but either way. Game against Clemson, 19-13. John Franklin III, big talk about him, coming out of JUCO, and the quarterback position still not settled in. The coaching staff just clearly did not trust anything they had going on. Just a complete debacle against Clemson. Play calling, no real deal strategy. Just an all-out embarrassing output for the Auburn Tigers. Losing that game, still one of the best teams in the country. Still coming to within. Matter of fact, Auburn threw a Hail Mary at the end of the game, and if they would have called it, they win the football game. That's just how interesting this is. Then going into the Texas A&M game at home, had no business losing that game 29-16. So already in 2016, turns out that season ended up with Auburn still in a position late in the season to make a push for a possible first 2-loss team to make it to the college football playoff. I'm going to get to what I'm talking about here in a minute, because I just want y'all to see the chronology of what I'm talking about. 2017, lost to Clemson in week 2. Then again, a few weeks later, lost to LSU. So you're talking 2 losses already, including a conference loss. So guess what? You have literally no room for error in 2017. Almost pulled it off, beating number 1 Georgia and then beating Alabama, who was number 1, in a span of 3 weeks. Making the trip to the SEC championship, beat up, banged up, lost to Georgia 28-7 after Georgia pulled away, scored 15 points in the fourth quarter to win that particular football game. I think it was 15 points. But either way, 2018, it appeared that Auburn's trend of losing these big games had ended, beating Washington, who at the time was a top 10 team, 21-16. Here comes week 3 against LSU. Up 21-10 in the middle of the fourth quarter, surrendering that lead to yet again lose a game within the first 5 weeks of the season. The reason why I think this is such an important deal that Auburn really needs to fix is because, especially when you play in a conference as competitive as the SEC, in a sub-conference as competitive as the SEC West, your first few weeks are very pivotal. And Auburn tends to lose a game while they're basically trying to figure out who they are identity-wise as an offense. Didn't happen quite as much in the LSU game in 2008 because it was pretty much established. We knew Jarrett Stidham was going to be the quarterback. But at the same time, you have no replacement for Kerryon Johnson. So that adds to the anxiety to the coaching staff to figure out what is going to work. Now we look over to Athens in 2018 using University of Georgia as an example. University of Georgia goes into week 7 against LSU kind of sort of on a roll. They had some shaky play here and there, but already winning 6 games, including 4 SEC games. So they have already established some leverage for their season. Go down to LSU. I mean, some things didn't go right for them. They didn't play particularly well. Lose that game 36-16 on the road. But still in the middle of the season, still having an opportunity, only 1 SEC loss, and still have the stretch ahead. But see, Auburn loses these games within the first 5 weeks, and that creates even more anxiety to not need to win, but now you have to win. Okay, you have to win anyway, but it creates that anxiety to where we are already playing from behind. And unfortunately, Auburn is not in a situation to where they need to be playing from behind. Because when you have a schedule every year that includes LSU, where everybody in the SEC West, that always includes Georgia, that usually includes a Power 5, a non-conference Power 5 team like Clemson, Washington, this year Oregon, you literally have no room for error. So that's why I picked this as a topic today, because Auburn is in a situation where as much talent as this team brings back on both sides of the football field, these first 3 weeks will be very pivotal in how this potential season can go. Auburn has a very, very challenging task in facing an Oregon team who, we'll just talk about the secondary today, full of high-end 4-star players. And you talk about playing a brand new quarterback. As a matter of fact, I will go out on a limb and say this quarterback battle thing needs to be solid it doesn't need to be a game time decision. This needs to be something that's established. It should be established right now. They might not just be telling us about it, but this quarterback battle needs to be solidified right now, and game planning needs to be occurring right now. Because Auburn is in a situation where if you look at the games that have been lost in the first 5 weeks, these games were lost because the identity just hasn't been established. We didn't know how good Auburn was going to be in 2013 until basically the second half of the LSU game. We didn't know how good, Auburn would be in 2016 until that little middle stretch where they were just killing everybody. In 2017, we knew how good Auburn was, just blew it against LSU. 2018, started to see shades of, lack of continuity on the offensive line. Had some injuries, had some transfers. Things happened, 2018. But now you go into 2019 with possibly the most solid roster that Auburn has had under the Gus Malzahn era. But I'm telling you guys, this cannot be a season where Auburn is in week. They have no time to figure it out. This has to be solid gameplay, solid game plan in place coming into Oregon. You know who the quarterback is. You know who the go-to guys at running back are. You can't be experimenting. And that's something that Gus Malzahn has to change. You know, hey, let me hand it off to Boobie Whitlow. Maybe he can get it going. Oh, well, Boobie Whitlow's not getting it done. Hey, let me try Cam Martin. Let me try Sean Shivers. Let's keep playing musical chairs until we figure out what works. That's not going to help Auburn in 2019, and that's definitely will cause Auburn to miss out on an incredible opportunity. I'm not saying that any team in the SEC, because you just never know. Everybody was ready to coin Alabama as the national champions in the middle of last season. Struggled a little bit down the stretch, somewhat compared to the earlier part of the season, and then made every mistake possible. Played a bad ball game against Clemson. Loses the national championship. Tua Tagovailoa was all but the Heisman winner in the middle of the season. We see how that turned out. I'm telling you guys, Auburn absolutely has to end this trend of losing a game within week 5. Because if you look at the bottom end of the schedule, it's just not conducive really for a team that's coaching as if they have room for error. Because you talk about the Oregon game, you're not starting your season off against Kent State. You're starting your season right out of the gate to where you have to have answers. You have to take some risks. You can't be afraid that your freshman quarterback, true freshman or redshirt freshman, is going to get out there and make some mistakes. You're going to have to trust, hey, this is the guy we chose as the leader of the team. Get us this win. That's the mentality that has to be had. Not, oh, we're going to play it safe. There is no room at this point for Auburn's program to play it safe. Of course, there's been some recovery recruiting-wise, some great things happening there for the Auburn Tigers. But I'm telling you guys, an early loss can be very costly for the Auburn Tigers. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Once again, it's K-Stu to go for Vernon Speaks Sports. We're talking Auburn football like there's nobody's business. Auburn has to get off to a great start coming into 2019 to have a chance, because the schedule is quite interesting and has literally no room for early errors. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. You guys and gals have yourselves a great evening. War Eagle.